Hi guys, it's Tori. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be giving you my review of the Dragonslayer Trilogy by Duncan Hamilton. The third book is releasing on March 10th, and I received an advanced reader copy from Tor in exchange for a non-biased review. So the first thing that really struck me about these is that they're kind of placed in a faux French setting, and they have a very classic feel to them. This trilogy is very reminiscent of a fantasy version of the Three Musketeers. It has the main character, Guillot, who is basically a has-been musketeer kind of character, and he's part of this group called the Knights of the Silver Circle, who are age-old dragon slayers. Now, there haven't been any dragons in the world that they're aware of for hundreds and hundreds of years, and so the Knights of the Silver Circle have basically become kind of obsolete, and they've turned into these kind of rebel-rousing, like, you know, drunk guys that just don't really have anything to do. But Gil, our main character, is introduced, and he's kind of like the mayor of a small village on the edge of this country, and he happens to be close to a dragon's cave where basically the first dragon in hundreds of years wakes up and starts terrorizing the countryside where Gil lives. Now, Gil is then called back to the capital city because everybody is freaking out about the fact that there is a dragon and we're all gonna die. Gil is the last dragon slayer in the land. Even though he hasn't technically slain any dragons, he was known as a very great warrior in his younger years, and so he's kind of the last hope of humanity. But of course, there's a character back in the capital who is very much the antagonist, and he does not want Gil to succeed. He just kind of wants to use Gil for his own purpose with all of this, and he's kind of taking advantage of the dragon attack to further his own ambitions. So along the way, Gil meets Soline, who is a magic user, and the thing about this is people who can use magic are hunted down and burned at the stake, essentially, in this country, except for the rare few who are found and basically brought into this secret society that nobody knows about, where they're trying to bring magic back. Soline is a young woman who meets up with Gil, and they end up kind of traveling together and become fast friends. They are trying to find this dragon and kill it to save the country. Now, there's a lot of things that come out in this trilogy about the dragons and about their culture and about magic in general, and Gil really struggling through a lot of the demons of his past. I found this trilogy really refreshing because it was simplistic enough that it had a classic feel without the weight of a classic, where it didn't feel laborious to get through. We definitely spend a lot of time inside the characters' heads, so that and for me, I love that kind of stuff, and for me it was even a little bit much at some points. He switches perspectives from Gil to Soline to the antagonist character, and then a couple of others along the way, so we really get a good sampling of perspectives on the whole situation. We get a perspective from the dragon, which is really cool. My pros of this trilogy: really interesting classic French setting. The dragons were really fascinating, kind of some of the stuff that he designed into the dragons and their history and their culture in general. I really loved the main character, Gil. I'm not typically a giant fan of most protagonists. Gil I really, really liked. I thought he was interesting, he was very conflicted, and I felt sorry for him, but I also wanted him to succeed at the same time. And so I felt like his grit and determination were balanced with just enough human fear and insecurity that he really was a very flawed, realistic character. My favorite character in the trilogy, Faradon, is one that we meet in book 2, and he is another dragon. He is really interesting, and I really liked his character. He feels non-human, which doesn't make sense to you because obviously he's a dragon, but if you read the series, you'll get why I'm saying that. Even when he is trying to be more human, you can still tell he's very otherworldly, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. The first book was about a 3.5 star for me. The second book was a solid 4 star. I really enjoyed it. And then I read the third book, and I'm not gonna lie, the third book I had a hard time with. Some of the decisions that Hamilton made with the dragons in particular I found really frustrating, and there was a character that he introduced that was really leading up to be really climactic and really interesting, and like this huge explosive ending to the book. And then at the end, nothing really happened with this character. And I started asking myself, okay, if we had taken this character completely out of the book, like, what happens? And basically the only thing that this character was there for was to move the other characters from point A to point B because they needed to be in different places. So essentially this character ended up being more of a plot device than anything else, which really frustrated me. The other thing I will say is, if you're looking for a really fast-paced, action-packed trilogy, this is probably not it. There were a few battles sprinkled throughout the books, but a lot of it is the characters moving from point A to point B, talking amongst themselves, setting things up, that kind of thing. Now I will say, and I want to do a whole video on this, but I will say Hamilton, when he's writing his combat scenes, they're okay. They're definitely better than a lot of combat scenes that I've read in books, but let's be real, like, there's only so many times that I can see the word parry or parried in a combat scene without cringing a little bit. And I understand, like, they're using rapiers and it's that kind of style of fighting with fencing and that sort of thing. So I get it, he's using words that, like, but at the same time it felt very, like, that kind of stiff mechanical fighting for most of it, which really disappointed me because combat scenes are so huge for me and I really had a hard time with some of them. The dragon scenes were a little bit better, but overall the combat scenes were a little subpar in my opinion. One thing I want to commend Hamilton for, I'm gonna slightly spoil the romance aspect of this book, so if you absolutely don't want to know, don't keep watching, but honestly I don't really think it's that big of a deal, so I'm just gonna say it. I was expecting Gil and Celine the entire book to be a thing at the end, to get together, and because that's what everybody does, because you can't just be friends. Apparently nobody has friends. Platonic relationships, we don't know her. Gil and Celine never end up together. They remain friends through the entire thing. There are several other characters that come in and out of the story that, like, could have been romantically interested in each other, and Hamilton doesn't pursue any of that, and I was kind of relieved, to be perfectly honest. It was really nice to see a solid platonic relationship where these two people genuinely care about each other and love each other, but it's platonic, and it was so wonderful. And, like, there were moments where, you know, Gil maybe noticed something, but it was never acted on, and it was never a thing where it felt like, oh, these two really need to end up together. Kudos to Duncan Hamilton for making a kick-butt platonic relationship and keeping it that way in this book. Okay, that's my overall review of the Dragonslayer Trilogy. If you have read these books and have some thoughts on them, please put them down in the comments because I'd love to hear them. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.